In 1914, the world was standing at the edge of a knife, and no one knew it. The skies were clear, the cities were alive with music and ambition, and the empires of Europe believed their golden age would last forever. But beneath the surface, the world was quietly preparing for the deadliest conflict in human history. A war that would bury old empires, redraw continents, and change the course of civilization. It began with a single gunshot, and it would end with over 20 million dead. This is the story of World War I, the war that was supposed to end all wars, but instead opened the gates to the bloodiest century in human history. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb nationalist. What seemed at first like a regional crisis quickly spiraled out of control. Austria-Hungary, with Germany's backing, blamed Serbia and issued an ultimatum. Serbia accepted most of it, but not all. On July 28, Austria declared war. Russia mobilized in defense of Serbia. Germany, fearing encirclement, declared war on Russia, then on France. When German troops marched through neutral Belgium, Britain joined the war. In just 1 week, Europe's great powers were at war, all triggered by a single shot, but driven by years of fear, rivalry, and ambition. Germany believed it could win quickly. Its plan, the Schlieffen Plan, called for a rapid invasion of France through Belgium, crushing the Western Front before Russia could react. But the Belgian army resisted. The French and British held the line at the Marne River in September 1914. The German advance stalled, and both sides dug in. Trenches were carved into the landscape, muddy, cold, and deadly. The Western Front became a brutal stalemate stretching hundreds of kilometers. Soldiers lived in filth, surrounded by rats and death. They faced relentless artillery barrages, machine gun fire, poison gas, and hopeless charges across no man's land. The Battle of Verdun lasted 10 months. The Somme lasted 4, and cost over 1 million casualties. Progress was measured in meters, death in the thousands. While the West was stuck in place, the Eastern Front saw greater movement. Germany and Austria faced the vast Russian Empire. At first, Russia invaded quickly, but Germany's army struck back with devastating precision at Tannenberg. Further south, Austria struggled against Serbia, and the Ottoman Empire entered the war on the side of the Central Powers. Italy, once allied with Germany and Austria, switched sides in 1915, drawn by promises of land. In the Middle East, Britain backed Arab revolts against Ottoman control, and in Africa and Asia, colonial troops were drawn into a European war that was anything but distant for them. Across continents, young men were dragged into battles they didn't start and would not survive. At sea, Britain's navy blockaded Germany, cutting off vital supplies. In response, Germany turned to U-boat warfare, sinking Allied ships, including the British liner Lusitania in 1915, killing over 1,000 civilians, including Americans. Tensions with the United States grew. In early 1917, Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare, hoping to starve Britain before America could react. Around the same time, the British intercepted the Zimmermann telegram, in which Germany secretly encouraged Mexico to join the war against the U.S. These two events pushed America over the edge. On April 6, 1917, the United States declared war on Germany. It would take a year before American troops arrived in large numbers, but the momentum was shifting. Back in Russia, the war had shattered the empire. In 1917, the Tsar was overthrown. A few months later, the Bolsheviks seized power and pulled Russia out of the war by signing the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany in March 1918. This freed up German forces to launch a massive final offensive in the West. Known as the Spring Offensive, it was their last gamble, a desperate push to win the war before American troops could tip the scales. For a moment, it worked. German forces advanced faster than they had in years. But they were stretched thin, exhausted, and undersupplied. When the Allies counterattacked in the summer of 1918, now bolstered by fresh American divisions, the German lines began to collapse. Back home, Germany was falling apart. Starvation, strikes, and mutiny spread. Austria-Hungary disintegrated into separate nations. The Ottoman Empire crumbled. Bulgaria surrendered. On November 9, 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated and fled to exile. 2 days later, at 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918, the guns fell silent. The war was over. It had lasted 4 years, claimed over 20 million lives, wounded 21 million more. Entire cities were shattered, generations lost, and the old order of Europe lay in ruins. In 1919, the victors gathered in Versailles to dictate the peace. The Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany of its colonies, its military power, and imposed crushing reparations. The Allies hoped it would prevent another war. But in Germany, the treaty bred anger, humiliation, and a desire for revenge. Meanwhile, the League of Nations was created to ensure lasting peace, but it lacked the authority to enforce it. The United States never joined. The world had been changed, but not stabilized. World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. Instead, it was a beginning of revolutions, of fascism, of a Second World War that would be even more destructive than the first. But in 1914, none of the soldiers marching off to war could have imagined what was coming. They thought they'd be home by Christmas. Instead, they walked into the deadliest conflict the world